Hey, and welcome home to You Are the Compass, a path to uncover the turning points that awaken us to new directions and the inner guidance that helps us navigate them. Our next guest is one of the first incredible people that I ever met on the island of Utila. Now, I come from a background in travel and dependent pretty much on knowing where places are in the world. When I first heard about Utila, it was through a friend who said, go and get more experience in diving. Me hanging on this advice, I said, okay, now out of all the places in the world that you've been diving, where would you suggest I go and further my knowledge? To which he recommended UDC or some dive school in Egypt. Now, UDC on Utila was the first to respond to my WhatsApp inquiry, and well, the rest is history. Utila, I soon later discovered, was an island off Honduras in Central America. And the lead up and background to this path will likely take us another podcast. So, to that, let's get back to meeting the amazing Tamara. I first met you on Utila, my first dive, and your ex husband was giving a boat briefing. And I'll never forget that moment of knowing I was right where I needed to be for my next chapter. Tamara is a high performance success coach looking to complete her PhD in conscious ethics within the next year. She's also a dive master and yoga instructor, and she's such an inspiration to the community of Utila, and that really runs deeper across the oceans. I'm beyond grateful that we can connect, and our next coordinates are set. We have arrived. Tamara, welcome home to You Are the Compass.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's such a pleasure.
Now, I do say this often as it deeply resonates with me. Time is everything, no matter what has your attention. So let's make the most of time we share in this moment. If we can share with our listeners, Tamara, how you got to be on Utila. Did you try out island life somewhere else first?
No, we never had looked at island life anyplace else. What happened is in March of 2017, my ex fiance and I, who then became my husband, we were viewing a home and garden island life of a couple moving from northern United States, Minnesota, down to Utila Island, Honduras. And so my former fiance, he took his trip down to Utila right after he finished his dive master. And he came back and said, it's paradise. I don't use that word lightly. And we're moving. And I said, okay, let's go.
Wow. The rest is history. Do you think you had a what was your why? I like to call it your point of turnaround on that compass course to live that totally different life? Or do you think being in the States, it just built up for you time after time?
I think for me personally, it was a build up time over time because I became self employed when I was 19 years old. And so I became an out of the box thinker and, a why person then. And so for me, I had already been self employed and my ex had served in the US Army for 200 missions. So he was also a calculated risk taker. So from that perspective, it wasn't difficult. And then in 2019, when we came together to visit, I fell in love with this community. I grew up in Los Angeles, and my sense of community, Southern California, United States, my sense of community was about a 3 out of 10. And then when my ex and I met, I was in Kansas City in the Midwest of the United States. My sense of community there was 7 out of 10. Now my sense of community here in Utila is 10 out of 10. So that is something I take into my heart and I spread out into the world around me, whether I'm interacting with somebody right up the street from me or I'm traveling elsewhere in the world.
Oh my gosh, like you're giving me goosebumps right now. Like I've literally sat here with a smile on my face because it's just bringing me back to that moment that I arrived on the ferry. I didn't know what I was walking onto, if the house that I'd rented for the next month was going to be a legitimate experience. All my family back home were like, you sure you don't want to do dive masters back in Australia or anywhere else in the world that we've heard of? I was like, no, I have to go and have this amazing experience. And, I was actually walking down the street. I hadn't met anyone and I was walking down Main Street. I think it was like past Josie's Cafe. And it was right, I could see UDC in my sights, and I just got overwhelming sense of you are exactly where you need to be. This feels like home, even though you're way across the world.
Exactly. That's so wonderful.
And just having that community, I think it's what you just said, like you just felt that your why was to be intertwined in everyone else's lives as part of this island.
It is. It's such a beautiful international community here. And when somebody comes to any environment, but especially a small island like this, I believe that your sense of did you come to give or did you come to take is very evident. And so, because I came to give so fully, purely of my heart, they say time, treasure, or talent when you are someplace. And I came to give of everything, my time, my treasure, my talent. And immediately the world locked down less than 2 weeks after we moved here. And so, talk about having a really unique experience of being here during a global lockdown. That was really special.
It's like you got out at the right time, I think, from the States. The whole world just went crazy. I used to work
It,
in travel and it was completely decimated. Like careers were lost, lives were lost, and yeah, just a crazy time.
yes, it was. And we had two crimes during that several months lockdown in some place that is considered an emerging country. We had somebody steal a rash guard and somebody else steal a boat battery. Most significant, very, very low key crimes. When people are hungry, we reached out for one another and we fed one another. And it was incredible to experience together.
You know, you just said something before that I've never actually heard it put that way: time, treasure, or talent. And I think that's just beautiful. Like, who gave you that realization? When did you first hear those words?
The first time I heard it was from my very first mentor, Dick Schlossberger. And I was finishing my entrepreneurial studies at university when he taught me that.
That's just that's brilliant. And what would you say your treasure is? Does it just keep evolving, or have you always had that in mind?
It does, but I would say it's my open-heartedness.
Mm,
In the yoga philosophy, we call it metta,
mm.
metta, and that is self-love. That once you fill your container of your mind, body, heart, spirit, then that effervesces and flows out into the world around you. And so I think that that is definitely my why, is to illuminate the world around me. And if we all do that, then instead of being a negative domino effect where we push each other down, instead we illuminate ourselves and everyone around us raises to our vitality and our illumination. Don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I feel everything has a light, energy, a frequency, a vibration to it, and like you said, it's up to us to fill our cup first, to have that self love and just dedication to what we want to bring out into the world before focusing on others, but still having the best intentions at heart.
Exactly. Exactly. It's intention and impact as well.
Mm. How you
Yes.
can be a little piece of their story, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been honored to be the first vice president who is a non-Utilian of the Utila Methodist Community College and School. And I take that honor and I've committed 2 years to that school. And that's 150 children here.
Wow.
They are our future. And so it's not just for Utila, it's for the entire world as well. So to get to be a part of that and to get to lovingly help steward these children's education and open-mindedness and bilingual education as well in English and Spanish is it's such an honor, and it really means a lot that I get to be of loving service in that way to them.
Well, just even thinking about to my own schooling, they never really had this teaching, this practice. Think about, yourself first, having that self awareness, that self love, and I think it's so important to, like you said, you're raising the future of not only the community of Utila, but the world. And it's in a bilingual, Spanish is their first language. And I find that emotions always seem to translate, though. No matter what language people speak, your body language, you pick up on signals, what they're emotionally putting down. Are they happy in the room? Do they light it up? I think that's just so important to be aware of at such an early age.
It is. It's very special. We actually just had a missionary come in, and she's an educator, and she has donated her time and her treasure and her talents to our teachers for emotional intelligence and given phenomenal workshops so that they can take that into the classroom with them.
That's incredible. And do you just see that, maybe not each and every day, but you would like to think weeks after weeks you're just seeing these kids growing and asking more questions and being enlightened?
It is. It's incredible. I actually asked and presented them with a corporate sponsorship program that I'd like to get local Utila companies to support the school and sponsor. And so I said, okay, kids, I want your wish lists. And one of the sixth graders, he is incredible. And he's from Utila. And he said to me, I want uniforms for all the kids who can't afford uniforms.
Oh my God. You would think, the kids, they don't enjoy like wearing uniforms, but I always thought it gave me a sense of being part of something, being part of a community, like even if it was a school uniform or a sporting uniform or a work uniform, you want to feel a part of the team and you want to grow together, you want to build something together. So maybe it's just the same.
Absolutely, it is part of that community. And I think it's very interesting here in Honduras that all schools have uniforms here. It's different uniforms for different schools, but it's very interesting to see, especially because I grew up and was educated in the United States, where only very few select schools had uniforms. So it is very intriguing to see that. And of course, it's just so talk about heart centeredness from a sixth grader
Yeah.
to to make that declaration that that was one of his biggest wishes.
When I hear the words uniform, I always think that it's being held in a box, but it's not. You can make it what you want. It doesn't need to be a label. It doesn't need to be something so constrictive. If you want to think outside that box, out that label, but a uniform, a community, it brings a sense of self and a self of pride to everyone.
Yes, and belonging, and belonging.
Now, I've got a little bit of a sidetrack, but keeping with the content. What led you to yoga and diving?
Yoga started for me again when I was 19 years old. And at the time, I was very, very obese. And I took a 3 hour Kundalini yoga class.
Wow,
Why not
three
start big?
hours. I think we'll go home. Sure. Love that.
And now half of my ancestry is Sufi Muslim, and so and half that my ancestry is Christian, and so it's very interesting that I've always felt the need to connect East and West within my bloodline, and as one human being to get to study that. So I became certified as a yoga teacher. Um, 12 or 13 years ago after having practiced it for probably close to 2 decades. And so it's been really wonderful to get to be an instructor in the work. I just call it a facilitator, right? Because that's all we're doing in any different instruction. And then dive master, I actually never thought I would become a diver. I had bursted eardrums from an international trip in 2009. So I never gave scuba diving a chance. And one of the things my ex-husband said to me while we were dating is, do you scuba dive? And he said to me, and I said to him, no, I've snorkeled all over the world for 13 years. And he said to me over text that that is like comparing a one propeller airplane to a spacecraft. There is no comparison between the two. And he was right.
Very much so. Very much so.
I don't love to dive as a profession. I enjoy being a recreational diver, but it was very important for me to have the skill set of the level of professionalism. And I'm really glad that I made that commitment.
I guess like the training on UDC, for any sort of reference of anyone that doesn't know about UDC, I'll go to places in Australia and they'll be like, yep, UDC, I know that. I did my, instructor level there 10 years ago. Like,
Exactly, exactly. It's world renowned as far
it
as Utila
is.
Dive Center. It is. It is.
And just the level of staff they have there, the level of commitment to that training program, it's really great to see. And it's certainly something I never really considered. And I grew up in the water. My dad launched our boat, well, his boat, when I was 2 years old. And he had a boat before that. So we were constantly in the water as kids, and we would do snorkeling trips. He was actually used to go and run dive charters in Fiji and the Solomon Islands and everywhere around the world, really. And no one could really believe that I didn't dive. And I was in a medic role, and they said, look, do you have your rescue diver? And I said, mate, I don't even have my open water. They're like, a good idea to go get that. So I went and got my open water, my advanced, and my rescue diver all in 6 days in Sydney, in Botany Bay, in the middle of winter. And then I met this friend, obviously, and said, look, you actually need to go and get some more worldly experience, not just certifications.
In
And
Botany Bay.
that's and I'd explored all these beautiful places, snorkeling, but not really diving. And it's like they say, like it's a whole nother world. You have no point of reference until you're down there, you're interacting with things. Like you don't even feel like you should be there, that it's a privilege to be there.
It is. It is a privilege and an honor. And so, how beautiful that your discovery of being in the water or on top of the water led you
Yeah.
to delve deeper. Mhm.
And I think that sort of went hand in hand for me with the yoga. Like I'd practiced Pilates pretty much since Windsor Pilates had a VHS videotapes on the home TV. Um, but I'd never my dad was always into that spiritual world and yoga and meditation. And he's like, you should get into it, you should get into it. And I just could never really connect the two together. For me, they were always separate. If I'd go for a hike or be out in nature, I'd never really think of it as meditation until I started doing the diving and being a bit more mindful, and then getting myself into that present moment. And past doesn't matter, the future's not yet come. And I guess I adopted that to be my own meditation. And so then when I
Mm.
did the classes more, I did yoga, I did more Pilates, I did more breath work. I loved doing that for, free diving when I started doing it. And I realized that it was all connected. That body movement, it's going to help you move better in the water. Your breathing will be helped by that when you're trying to hold your breath for 3.5 minutes. Did you find the same?
Absolutely. I didn't. I thought the first thing I would do would be to free dive here. And it has not yet, after 5.5 years of living on island life full time in Utila, it has not been a calling for me yet.
Mm,
But there is definitely a connection between breath work, yoga, diving, free diving, all of it. Absolutely.
yeah, it's such powerful stuff. And as much as we don't want to control ourselves, and we do just want to break free every now and then, if you can just bring everything back to that breath and 6 steps in front of you, what you're going to do, and pause, reset, I find it just holds so much weight.
Absolutely. What a beautiful sentiment and journey.
And do you think that's still relevant on reflection to what your why was when you were 19?
Absolutely. I think if anything else, it's just become even deeper because the level of being able to connect to other people as a teenager versus, an over 50 adult is very different. And so it's just deeper now. The connections are just so much deeper, for me at least. And that heart centeredness for me is a whole new level. It's it's so easy for me to connect to my heart because I do love myself too. So I think as a 19-year-old, I had actually tried to commit suicide 3 days before my 19th birthday. And so, struggling with depression and with lack of a sense of belonging, I made a promise to my grandfather and my mother, my maternal grandfather and my mother and my best friend. On when I came out of the ICU, heart and I was in the coronary ICU, the cardiac ICU, because of the pills that I had taken and the damage it did to my organs. And I made a promise to them that day on November the 9th of 2003 that I would never, of 1993, that I would never, ever, ever do that again, that I would always reach out to two people. And so I have made that commitment and held that commitment for a lifetime.
Do you think it was waking up and seeing them there?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. Seeing their faces and the horrific shock of thinking that they were going to bury their eldest granddaughter and their only child. Yes.
So powerful. I think people talk about turning points and realizations and like that watershed light bulb moment. And it either has to be something so powerful like that for someone to just flick a switch and say, no, I'm going to do things differently, or it's built up little bit by little bit over time, and then it's like the last straw that broke the camel's back. It's like that won't be the reason why you're going to change, but it'll be looking back on your life over so many years and just connecting those dots and realizing that you don't want to continue going down this path.
Correct, 100%. And that is actually a meditation that I work on a regular basis. Is I flip the switch pretty much every morning when I wake up. I have done a lot of work with cognitive behavior therapy and many different forms of work in yoga and breath work. But one of the biggest things is, when people say, "Oh, I tried, I tried, I tried," what's the old saying from one of the Star Wars or Star Trek movies? Do or don't, there's no try. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
right?
yeah, something like that. We'll reference it
Something
later.
like that. So it's just fun to just walk over to the light switch and say, no, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to illuminate myself. I'm going to illuminate my heart. I'm going to illuminate this room that I'm in. I'm going to illuminate my block. I'm going to illuminate my world. And so I think if we all can continue to work on that, because we can't change divisiveness, we cannot change hatred, but we can change ourselves. We can flip our light switch every single day.
We can change our perception of it and how we're going to put
Yes.
our actions and thoughts out into the world. And I'm such a positive person, though I feel like
Sure.
the choices, you've got to keep doing it every day, and every day is not going to be the same. There's going to be roadblocks in your way. You're going to have to exhaust other avenues to get to where you see yourself being that very best person, and being that light for not only yourself first and foremost, but for everyone else. It's a active choice. It's a conscious choice that you've got to keep making. And throughout even your day, it will vary. You'll be up, you'll be down, and you're just like, no, this is why I'm choosing this. Do you think you go back, or maybe it's different, but do you think you go back to that moment when those times are really trying and you can't seem to get there on the day, or for whatever reason? Like, I know for me, I get quite anxious about something, but I just take myself to how far I've come in the last, well, the lifetime, but the last 3.5 years.
Yes, it's very easy to fall into the pits. It's very easy to fall. To slide down a mountain doesn't take much, but to climb back up, it takes a lot of action steps.
I love that analogy. Maybe climb mountain, but yes, that's so true. So true.
It is. And so look at, how beautiful to have accomplished and to see those continued action steps. So it's okay if there's an hour or a day. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll set a timer of allowing myself to be angry or allowing myself to be sad or to mourn and just allow myself to feel those, what we call negative emotions, but they're still emotions. And I can't always stay in a state of love and above like I try to. Love, joy, peace. Gratitude has a vibration frequency of 900 out of 1,000. That is the closest we can get to divine consciousness as one human being, to stay in the attitude of gratitude. And so that's one of the things that I work with. I have my gratitude journal pretty much with me at all times. Also gifted to me by my educator missionary who was just here on island recently. So, there's just different tools that we all have to reach out. But I'm also a sanguine. So, meaning I need to connect, I need to be touched, I need to touch, I need to reach out to other people. So, like I said, because I made that commitment over 30 years ago as well, that's been really important. And, that's actually, I remember now why I became an entrepreneur, is because I had to take time off from university. And so it was very important to be able to still go to community college. My scholarship was at risk because of trying to take my life and because of having such poor grades, during that during that semester and during that time frame. And so absolutely it led me to be a calculated risk taker and to be able to live in a completely different environment and a completely different language and a very different culture as well. So it doesn't have to take that big moment, like you say. It can be slowly built up over time.
Even when I left Utila the last time, so I was there, a good year and a bit ago, and I went to Colombia and I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anyone. I didn't really know where I was going. I was going to Cali, and that's not really a touristy spot to go, let alone being in South America, in Colombia. I just felt an overwhelming sense of, again, that I was right where I needed to be. I got to the airport, I had a coffee. They were like, "Jesse, welcome to Colombia." And I just felt, wow, this is somewhere where I need to be to reset. I'm not going to go and dive in the ocean. I'm not going to be able to hike any mountains for a bit. And it was really great to just sit with myself and sit with the thoughts that I'd kind of pushed back on for the last 6 months. So people say, they'll go out and go to a party or something like that, or go drinking with their friends, and that's their release. Whereas mine, it was always going diving or going trekking
Mhm.
for a good long day. And I
Yes,
realized that that's sort of taking me away from that self-reflection time, to the extent that I needed to just sit in a room with my thoughts and figure out what was next, for no one else
Mhm.
but myself.
Absolutely. That interconnectedness within you.
100%. I believe, look, self-love is just at the very core of this, and it's such a powerful message. How can we start with this? Like, what's one little thing we might be able to change to give ourselves a little bit more breathing room? For me, I engage with people and I try and find out their why. So if I'm working with them, what their reason is for being a writer or a medic or a yoga instructor, or what their original why was. Do you have any advice for how one may start with questioning, just questioning their why, but not overthinking it too much and not getting bogged down in that, oh, my life's not going where I thought it would go, that they can make conscious choices every day?
It's a wonderful question. And one of my techniques that I use in my high performance success coaching practice is I ask people, well, do you have a love of house plants or a love of an animal within your home? And usually the majority of people will say, absolutely. Or a plant even outside of your home, a tree outside of your home, and they will say, absolutely. And I say, well, that's wonderful. So what happens if your house plant loses a leaf? You will go over and give it more water, less water. You will tend to its needs. And you will do that lovingly. You will not cuss at that houseplant. You will not put that houseplant down. And so that's one of my techniques that I teach my clients is you need to at least treat yourself like your own houseplant. Because when we lose a leaf, when we lose a limb, when we, go through a pit of despair or a very, very trying time, how are we speaking to ourselves? So I think that that is one of the quickest, easiest, most visceral ways to stop that negative self-talk and to really turn it into how do you treat a houseplant? Well, then you need to treat yourself that well.
That's got me. That's so true. I think some people use that to their advantage, and they'll get that analogy and they'll be like, I'll give myself a little break. I am doing the best I can at this minute with the information and the people around me, and that's okay. And then there's others that take that too far and they get into a
Sure.
victim mentality, and that can be very disconcerting as well. It's again getting into those. I don't like to think of negative and positive emotions. They are just all emotions and
Yes.
they're all part of it,
Yes.
but
Yes.
they can get stuck down in it and really, yeah, get quite depressive and not really know how to get themselves out. But I love that plant analogy to start with, to just have something that you're just a little bit more accepting of yourself, and then, okay, where do I need to move from here? And I guess it's about having that community with you as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, just if it is the house plant, does it need more sun or less sun? Does it need more water, less water? Does it
Mm.
need more food or not? And so that's a great place to start for us as humans as well. Root chakra, Muladhara in yoga, Maslow's hierarchy of needs called it the base needs. All of the ancient wisdoms basically go to the same thing, and that is self love starts with the basic needs for ourselves as an individual. So, I think that that's the best place to start. Oh, well, I forget to drink water. Well, okay, then if you forget to give your houseplant water, then it's going to have a leaf come off. It's okay. Okay. Just reset. Go flip that switch.
Start something small and build from there. I love that analogy with the Maslow's law hierarchy. I learned that back when I was working for a non-for-profit organization back in Australia here, and it was going out and delivering medical care to the homeless. And it's what actually sort of led me to want to become a medic and do some sort of qualification, go back to school or whatever it needed to be. And someone came to me and said they don't have that hierarchy being out on the streets, being homeless. They don't have those basic needs at base level satiated for them. Then they're not completed for them. If they've got one
Yes.
part of it, if they've got housing, that they won't have the ability to feed themselves because they won't have enough money left over, or the medical care that we're giving them, yes, it's enough, but we can't get them to come to the appointments. And it's so powerful. Like, if you don't have that in any human being, where can you expect to build on from there if you're not building the little steps that go, like, I guess in a triangle analogy, what's the biggest part?
Absolutely. Those most basic needs, those most basic needs. And, Maslow was studying the chakras. He was studying the ancient Ayurvedic texts, which means science of life. But he just made sure to keep it, using sociological terms. And so it's wonderful. It's so beautiful to see. And what a beautiful experience that you learned that in such a visceral way.
And I just found it carried me through. Like, I wanted to talk to more people, and I had some crazy stuff sort of happen over the last 3.5 years, but it's all how you react to it. It's all how you move with it. Okay, this might happen this day, and I guess you're mourning it, but you're also moving on from it. What are the next steps to go from here? Because I had allowed myself that time to get self aware, to realize that that is going to happen and be okay with it. And then, but also looking forward to what the next steps were, how I can still keep building on from that. Mm.
How beautiful that we're continuing to create the life of our dreams every single day. And some days that looks like a nightmare, and that's okay.
They're all dreams. They're all our own perception.
None of us are getting out of this life alive.
This is true. This is true. And what's your plans for the next little while? Are you staying on Utila? Busy visiting parents back in the States?
My mother is in Florida, so I do get to visit her often. I haven't seen my father, who's in Hawaii. He landed in the United States in 1970, and so yes, I'm sure I'll get to visit them. My best friend is in Europe, so I plan on getting to visit her as well, and then getting to dive Egypt. So I've made a commitment to be on the board here until for the Utila Methodist School until November of 2026. So I will honor that commitment, and then I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. In Hawaiian, we call it ika ika wahine, which means warrior woman, she who puts one foot in front of the other.
Love that. And I guess if I have any friends coming over to Utila and the community, I can have them reach out to you. You can do a yoga session for them or business coaching.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're also welcome in my home. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine, Jessie.
Oh, I'm going to link that in the show notes for our listeners, and yeah, just get your name out there, your sense of community, and I think you have such a beautiful message and light to bring into the world. And I love that we can connect all these continents away. I'm in
So
Australia and
special.
it's 16 hours behind you guys, there, but yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you for facilitating the logistics and inviting me. I really honor your time.
Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Namaste.
Thank you, listeners, for being a part of the show today, from wherever you have chosen to give your time from. Since meeting Tamara and starting this podcast, I was so excited to invite her on to chat with me. And we unpacked so much, and I'm going to recap that message of time, talent, and treasure. I hadn't really heard those words delivered like that before, and whilst I always was and am hyper aware that we don't have an infinite amount of time, it is truly up to us on an individual core level to discover our talent, to be better each and every day, so that when our time is up, our treasure does truly remain.